Hey guys, Zeshon here with a non-gaming related video. I'm going to talk about the COVID-19 vaccine, the data involved, basic information, as well as my experience as a healthcare worker after having gotten the shot itself. I just came back from work. I just got my vaccine about 2 hours ago, so this is literally fresh. My plaster is still here. And just to prove that I did get the vaccine, this is my vaccination card, and this is my schedule. You can see that I got my first dose today, 22nd of January, and I'm due to get my next dose, second and last dose, on the 17th of February. As the card would suggest, I work in Singapore. I work as a healthcare worker, as a doctor, in the restructured healthcare sector of Singapore, and as such, I'm fortunate in the fact that my healthcare system in my country has procured enough vaccine to start vaccinating frontline workers like myself, as well as others in the maritime and airline industry. I'm making this video because I often get questions, not just from family members, friends, but also from fellow healthcare workers, fellow colleagues, fellow nurses and doctors who, once they hear that I've chosen to take the vaccine, ask me why, what makes you so confident this will work? So I thought I'd just run through briefly what these vaccines are. I don't think I need to go through what COVID-19 is, because by now every country on earth has felt both the healthcare as well as the economic impact of the pandemic. And if you're from Singapore, you might not know someone who was personally affected by COVID-19, but if you're from other countries who've had a much worse COVID-19 situation, then you probably know somebody, either yourself or your second degree of separation, somebody's friend or family member that suffered from COVID. And so you'll know that this is a very significant problem. So what are the vaccines involved in this? I'm just going to talk about the mRNA vaccines because that's what we have in Singapore currently, and that's what I personally have experience with. So mRNA actually stands for messenger RNA, ribonucleic acid, which contains information necessary for protein production. So the vaccines just basically instruct your cells to create a copy of a specific protein, and the instructions to produce that protein is what the mRNA is. It's just basically instructions telling your cells to produce a specific protein. So for the COVID-19 vaccines, this protein takes the form of the COVID-19 spike protein, which is found on the outer surface of the COVID-19 virus. And so once you produce the spike protein, it is then displayed on the exterior of your cell, where it triggers an immune system response to make antibodies. And this is basically part of the adaptive immune system, meaning the part of your immune system that can learn from previous experiences to try to fight off infections. If your immune system works, it is sort of let down, because nothing happens. When your immune system is working perfectly, you don't feel anything because the infections are taken care of before they even become a problem for you, before you even become symptomatic. So where this all came from and who we have to thank for this is Professor Katalin Kariko, and she first started working on mRNA in her early 20s in 1978 and first had her first grant application in 1990. So she's been working on this for a very, very long time. And the main problem with mRNA in the past was that it would cause quite significant inflammation after injection into mammalian test subjects. However, herself and her partner, Professor Drew Weissman, managed to overcome this by substituting or altering the nucleoside, or one of the building blocks of the mRNA itself, and they published these results in 2005. So this mRNA vaccine technology is not new. It is not something that was developed just last year. In fact, it has been in the making for the better part of 2 or 3 decades already. It is interesting that the companies involved with the first mRNA vaccines basically started working on this a decade ago or more. Professor Kariko joined BioNTech, which was a company focused on making mRNA vaccines, and she joined it in 2013. For Moderna, the other company making an mRNA vaccine, its founder, Derek Rossi, read Professor Kariko's paper in 2005 and was inspired enough to create a company to try to actualize this. So there are talks that she is in the running for a Nobel Prize, and if the vaccine shows the similar results as it has in the clinical trial so far and plays a major part in fighting the COVID-19 pandemic affecting the world, I can see why she'll be a very strong contender for that. So I'm hoping that she will get recognized for that. With regards to the Pfizer vaccine itself, the main data we have from a study that was published in the New England Journal of Medicine is the oldest and one of the most prestigious medical journals out there. There were a total of 43,000 participants that were randomized into two groups, one for the placebo and one for the vaccine. And basically, after following them up, they found that it was 95% effective in preventing COVID-19. And the most common side effects were local injection site pain, fatigue, and headaches. The rare occurrences of anaphylaxis, or what that is in clear, simple language, is basically life-threatening allergic reactions. And therefore, most centers around the world administering the vaccine are on the lookout for this. And usually there are EpiPens or adrenaline injections available just in case someone develops anaphylaxis. This is obviously more common in someone with a history of drug allergies or food allergies. And if you had a previous episode of anaphylaxis before, the general consensus is that you should not take it. So the people who should not take the vaccine are those with a previous occurrence of anaphylaxis, those who are below 16, because this population was not studied in the trial and therefore we have no data on safety, as well as the pregnant patients who are pregnant, or people who are pregnant basically. So that's what the current data that we have on the Pfizer vaccine. And more personally, the next question would be, why did I choose to take the vaccine? Just to share, I'm in my mid-30s. I have no chronic health conditions. I am slightly overweight. But besides that, I don't smoke. I exercise not as much as I would like to, but I'm not fully inactive. And therefore, just by the population data alone, I should be a fairly low-risk candidate or low-risk patient if I do get COVID. Well, the first is, if the vaccine exists and it is good and efficacious as the data has proven, I liken this to having the chance to train in the martial arts dojo under the watchful eye of a sensei, and that's the vaccine, versus if you get the infection out of the blue and you're thrown into the deep end, you're basically getting thrown into a street fight, unprepared, with a gangster, and that's not really the best environment for yourself or your immune system to try to beat off the vaccine. So if it exists, which it does, and it's safe, which it is, I would rather have protection rather than not. Secondly, it's a very widespread belief that, oh, I'm fine because I'm young and I'll just get it and I will have no symptoms and we'll move on with life, and that's fine, I just get immunity from that. The main problem is that life is not so simple. The outcomes for COVID are not just asymptomatic infection or death at the other spectrum. There is a wide spectrum of symptoms and, of course, of potential long-term deleterious effects on your health should you get the infection. This phenomenon of long COVID, or of symptoms persisting after an acute COVID infection, is something that is becoming increasingly reported as more people get the infection and recover from the infection, although to their dismay, they do not recover fully. Their effort tolerance, or how much stamina they have when they do physical activities, is significantly decreased, or there are long-term effects such as a long-term loss of taste, a long-term loss of smell. And so it is not so simple as getting an infection and see I'm the 90% that will not have any symptoms and just brushing it off like that. I think even though it is a 90% chance that you might have the fairly benign cause of the illness, 90% is not 100%. And as I like to tell my patients, if you are the 10%, to you, it is not 10%, it is 100%. Okay, you are going through the effects yourself and you will be suffering the long-term effects of COVID, if any, and you'll be kicking yourself for not getting the vaccine. So that's my own personal take on why I chose to take the vaccine. Of course, everybody's circumstance is different. Your own medical conditions, your own comorbidities, your own past medical history. It differs from person to person. So I cannot obviously advise everyone to take it. You have to weigh the pros and cons. But for myself, I have done that analytical process, and on the whole, obviously, I thought it was worth the relatively minor risks of taking the vaccine. So I'm currently 2 hours out, and as of now, I don't feel anything much beyond just maybe a bit of lightheadedness after the vaccine itself. That kicked in at about the 10-minute mark after I got the jab. I don't know whether that's just psychological, because as everybody is, a bit slightly anxious about taking the vaccine. However, I don't have any fatigue so far. The injection site is not particularly painful, not more so than the usual influenza vaccines that we have to take as healthcare workers. And so I think I've been fairly fortunate in terms of the side effect profile that I've had. However, I will continue to do more vlogs like this over the next few days, just to report in at different time intervals and just to share my own personal experience with side effects from the vaccine. So this is currently at the 2 hour 15-minute mark, and so far so good. So let's hope that the rest of the day and the rest of the weekend goes smoothly. I'm about to leave the house to bring my son for his weekly swimming class, so hopefully the effects don't kick in then. But I will check back in again once it's a bit later in the day, and I've given the vaccine more time to develop side effects. Hopefully none, fingers crossed, but we'll see how it goes. Yep, so this is the 2.5 hour mark, and it's just signing off for now. Hey guys, so just a quick update at the end of day 1. It's been about 9.5 hours since I got my first dose of the vaccine, and side effects so far include definite myalgia or muscle pain over the injection site. It's a very dull ache, and it sort of feels like you just worked it out at the gym really intensely. It's similar to the kind of muscle pain that I get when I get the flu jab sometimes, but this is just a bit worse. Intensity wise, I probably rate it about 5 out of 10, whereas the normal flu jab is about a 3 or 4 out of 10. I took some paracetamol earlier, and it seems to have helped a bit, but I can definitely feel it still there. So I'm hoping that with one night's sleep, it should get better. And the other thing I felt while trying to stay up for Genshin Impact live stream is that I felt a bit more fatigued and tired than I usually do at this hour. I'm not sure whether it's just my imagination or whether it's just something else in the day that combined to make me feel this way. But my wife has commented that I do look a bit more tired than I should at this time of day. So hopefully again that goes off after one night's rest. So I'll check in again tomorrow, and we'll see how I'm feeling tomorrow. But so far, I'm nothing too out of the ordinary for post-vaccination symptoms. Okay, so this is the end of day 1, just before I'm about to head off to bed. Yep, and we'll see how things go tomorrow. Hey, so I'm checking in at the 24-hour mark. It's about 24 hours and 30 minutes since I got the first dose of the vaccine. And after a good night's rest, as you can see, changing the lighting behind me, the fatigue has mostly gone away. I had a bit of a headache before I went to sleep, but that's gone as well. And the only thing that's still persistent is the ache in my left deltoid muscle, the one where I got my injection. I have difficulties moving my shoulder joint because of the ache. It's not impossible. I can still do this. It just hurts. It just hurts like I worked it out really hard at the gym. And it's somewhat similar to my last flu jab, and I did have some myalgia, some muscle pain as well. But it is slightly worse, probably about 5 out of 10. Nothing that can't be handled with a bit of paracetamol, so I'm going to just keep trucking on. So that's the first 24 hours experience that I've had after the first dose of the vaccine. I'll probably just upload all this as the first 24-hour experience, and I'll report back in every day as we hit 48 and 72 hours, but I expect things to get better. So most likely those will be short and to the point. But yeah, so thanks for following along on this journey as to seeing what putting this novel and unique vaccine into my body has done. So far, nothing really too spectacular, which is good. You aren't boring in medicine. And so far, it's been quite uneventful. So yeah, for those of you who are lined up or still thinking about whether to get your shots, hope this one person's experience can help you somewhat in trying to make up your mind. Yep, and as always, this is Etrion, signing off.